Hello, everyone. I'm Erica Marx, and I'm here today with Robin Fox, who is a dear friend and colleague and inspirational leader, facilitator, coach, and teacher. And we are here to, I'm here to help however I can help serve Robin because Robin is doing beautiful work in the world. So, Robin, could you introduce yourself and then we can get into how can I help?
Excellent. So I have been a teacher most of my life, a special education teacher. I worked in public and private schools. I also have a degree in psychology, and I always loved to act. I'm a professional improv actor, was trained for 5 years with Viola Spolin method. Uh, and I ended up bringing all those things into my work as I retired from public school teaching, and now I do consulting, keynotes, and trainings. And I'm so passionate about this work because I feel like I have helped myself become the way I want to be in this world. And it was through systematic use of different techniques, of different ways of looking at myself, of understanding how to be the most, uh, you know, the best mother and grandmother and teacher and friend and wife. All of that just rolls into how you move in the world. And how you move in the world is always up to you, no matter what else is going on. And so I'm creating a 10-week program that is a certificate training in nervous system aware facilitation, including neurodiversity, applied improvisation, and embodied presence.
Okay. So that is who you are and what you're about. And my offer here in Design Lab is how can I help? Like what you know me a bit, you know a bit about how I work, and you've come to me in the past just as a friend, right? And being like, I've got this, I want this, but it doesn't fit with that, or I feel like I wish I could do all of this, but I don't have enough time, or I have a dream, I don't know how to do it, or I have two ideas that are arguing in my head. Any the classic things, right? Um,
I just want
so
to
since
say that, I'm sorry,
yeah,
I just want to say, Erica, you have helped shaped my facilitation in so many ways. At the beginning, I remember during the pandemic, you camped out in my backyard in a tent
mhm,
for social
sure,
distancing. And you helped me understand the arc of a presentation. And you helped
mm,
me understand the through line of a presentation. And I have watched you facilitate many, many times. And I'm
mhm,
always admired your ability to read the room, to provide the essential learning and make sure that it was delivered in ways that people not only understand it, but they can bring it with them. So I'm very excited about today.
okay. Yes. So yes, and that probably relates to why you're here, right? Like understanding the little bit you've shared with me about this program that you're developing seems like those are really important components, right? How to have a meaningful arc, how to have every piece of that matter, and how to have a continuity between the sessions so that people are developing. Kind of like you were saying in your own intro, like I'm being a wife, I'm being a mother, I'm being a teacher, like all of these pieces weave in, they all support each other, and they culminate in like a cohesive human being, as we work out the kinks and of what it is to be a human that makes sense and that the values are applied in different areas. And so my guess is that's the dream you have for the participants in this, is that you're providing them this information and this context and experience where they can integrate things and have it all come together piece by piece. And at any moment, if we just froze time, they would know, where am I now in this learning journey and what's meaningful already, and it makes sense. It's not waiting for the end. It's whole and complete as it's developed. Is that how does that capture sort of the the dream or what you want, your goal of this facilitation. What else might you add to that, or how would you refine it?
Well, I I have almost too many good ideas, so it's sometimes it's hard to narrow them down. And as a teacher, I was trained to overplan because you never know what the mood is in the room and how sometimes things go really quickly, sometimes they flop,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're so good you just want to keep milking it. So I need help with really realistically giving, uh, planning things that really sink in. I need help slowing down and
Okay.
and taking advantage of a key learning and letting helping people process it. I've been involved with neurodiversity since before I went to grad school. I taught in a
Mm-hmm.
school for autistic young adults, and the so I've been very aware of other people's processing. However, I process very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and my frame of reference is that, oh, they got it now because I said it. And then I listened to someone like Rachel Maddow. I don't know how many of you know her show, but
Mm-hmm.
Rachel repeats things over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a little bit frustrated with that, but I realize why she's doing it because she has a singular message for that segment and
Right.
she really wants to drive it home. So I would love I would love some help with pacing, with organizing on Session Lab because I know that's a great
Okay.
tool.
Yeah.
Um, and also just through line. Just I think I have the flow of the 10 sessions, but I would
Mhm.
love to um, have some critical input from you.
Okay. Yes, and I was realizing while you were talking that you said I have this like leftover thing from what you said before of like making sure it's clear that I also say that Robin, you have changed my life and your ability to like Robin, you've changed my life in multiple ways of always being this person on the frontier, of what happens if we go a little deeper here and what happens if, we become more whole and bring more of our whole self and we do that some of the things you were speaking to here, like slow down and take in and listen and trust ourselves and just to be clear, I want to make sure that was clear to anyone who's listening in, that as much as I may have affected Robin in her facilitation, Robin has changed my life starting from the day I met her, which was your birthday. So um what do you remember? You're remembering? Yeah, it was at a conference. I came up to you.
Oh, okay.
She was glowing and I just got to know her. Um, so anyway, back to what you said you're here for. So you're saying you're a teacher, and there's this idea of over planning, and I think, um, and then wanting it to be experiential and real. And so, and you've seen people do like repetition, like you saw with Mata, and you're like, well, that kind of works because you want the effect of the repetition, but your brain moves fast. You probably don't want the mechanical way of just let's just repeat, let's repeat, let's repeat. That feels like it doesn't feel totally aligned. I could understand that. You're teaching to people who you expect many of them are going to move at your pace. So you want the repetition, but without the mechanical version of doing it. So when you're saying a through line, are we talking about just like let's just take one segment? Or okay, so they take one workshop. There's how many workshops within this whole thing? 8, you said?
10.
Or 10. Okay. So whatever it is, so within one workshop. And you said you understand the concept of a through line. So that being like this one workshop, it's 2 hours long. Each one is 2 hours long right now. Right. Also, actually, is this in person, online? Not that it matters for design, but just out of curiosity.
Online.
Online. Okay.
I have people from Asia and India who'd like to join, so
Yeah.
it'd be hard to
The
be in
world.
person.
Yes. So an online workshop. Um, So how clear are you about like the purpose or like if you thought, here's my people coming in the room and here's them leaving, the
Yeah.
idea of a through line is there's one thing, there's one concept that I want them to really understand at the end of this session. Like one thing I want them to like, they've looked at it this way, that way, upside down, they've gone through however it is, but there's one thing that they're like this, they really believe it's true, they really understand what you're saying, or they test it out for themselves. Like how clear is it that you have one simple concept for each session?
That's a great question. I love that. I'm not 100% sure. I think it is that um, their level of awareness of both their emotions, their interoception, their ability to read and use to the advantage of what's going on, their internal reading of themselves and what's going on within them as the most important foundation for being able to read the room and plan accordingly. So it's about progression from understanding yourself, and I have lots of exercises to help dive into that, and then being aware of other people in both their you know ability to relate in the moment, to pivot in the moment, to rupture repair if something happens. Like how do you go
Okay.
about doing that?
Yeah.
And then because that if something goes wrong in your workshop,
Mhm.
your body is reacting.
So
So how
is
do you
this
navigate that? So
so
that's
okay, so this is about you're answering to like the whole progression, right? So that not just within one workshop, but the one through line through the whole thing is about your body as instrument or your would that be a way to sum it up?
yeah,
Like,
like I love that as an instrument because it's like, if I play the ukulele, and there are different things I play that evoke emotions in people,
mm,
and from the words to the way I strum to the actual choice of the chords themselves, because that
yes.
creates different energy. So if your body is the instrument that you are using, like really celebrate that, know that, and that's just the beginning. Actually, that's the first session,
Okay.
is called Your Nervous System Enters the Room First. Um,
Mm,
so, the facilitator is a part of the environment, and it reframes facilitation from techniques to
hmm.
embodiment.
Yeah.
Like, you, and it's not, I mean, it might seem like, oh, that's an ego thing. It's not an ego thing. Actually, you have to go
Right.
beyond the ego to do
So
that.
this does seem, I mean, people are responding in the chat. They're like, that sounds so cool because that is that I feel like is the unique offer you're bringing is this awareness of neurodiversity, this awareness of not just, oh, there's neurodiversity out there. We have to, how do we deal with people's neurodiversity in the room? But from what I know of you, it's about like my own, where's my own body in this? Like so many people we're facilitating, we're teaching from here, just like I'm here in my head, but I actually haven't. Did you feel your feet when you're facilitating? Do you trust your own body? How much do you know your own body so that when you get a signal, you can accurately interpret it, right? Is your instrument, is it, is it,
Tuned.
is your lens dirty because like you have unconscious bias against certain tones of voice or whatever, or is your instrument clean? And then you can trust when the signal comes in, you're like, I'm reading this because I know me and I know my instrument. That feels like the place that you want to be. Like that's the song you want to be singing. That's the thing you want to be bringing people back to. And when I hear that, I also think it's like an inquiry because how much of it is if I have like in my body, I have to be able to be discerning of like, did something just happen in the room that's really useful information as a facilitator, or did something happen that's just in me that's like somebody walked by with a certain gait and that reminds me of something that I haven't fully processed. So that's not about it's relevant to me continuing to be a good facilitator, but it's not a clear read on something in the room. So,
It's absolutely true. And if you think about it, every time, I don't know about anybody else here, but every time I facilitate, I sweat like I'm playing tennis hard, singles. And I know that's because I am on alert. My body's on
mhm,
alert for all of that. So all these parts of me are like totally like antennas picking up, all the things around and also internally. So that's a lot to manage. And if we don't tune up before by practicing certain techniques and, almost daily getting to know ourselves, then we'll always be at that level where we are, just kind of reacting instead
yeah.
of responding.
So, so that's the like sort of the, I don't know, it feels like that's the basis of what it means to be working with you and working with you in this, in any trainings you're developing that are for like train the trainers, that are for teachers and facilitators, right? Is
Right.
an awareness of that, techniques around that, like how do we manage, how do we keep the good part of the alertness, but without the like anxiety,
Yeah.
drenching sweat, you know? So
Right.
what
Yes.
what's the and people in chat are relating to this. They're like, yeah, me too. It's here. Um, you're getting me drawn into the content, right? Because I'm like, well, I have things to questions and things that I could talk about this content. I'm curious about it. I also just for the format here today, like what you were talking about a through line, and we ended up talking sort of like the bigger through line, and then you were talking a through line of an earlier session, earlier part of it is like getting in tune with your own body.
Right.
What's the part like when you're sort of like you're at home with this all this content and all this thing you want to deliver and all this passion and all these questions, where is the sort of like where's the energy as far as like what's the question that's current like just right now? You're like, yeah, but how do I deal with this? Or where's the little energy cluster in your own design process right now?
I think it is the like if I can take one session and we could focus on that
Yes,
and
let's do
we
that.
could just see like timing. I mean, I've done session lab before. I haven't for a while, but the timing is like, 20 minutes, and I do this all the time with lesson plans, 20 minutes. Well, it's 10 minutes in reality, or it's 40
Mm-hmm.
minutes in reality.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you account for that? How do you buffer that in?
Okay.
Do you have like, um, a way to have things built in so that if it's shorter, you have this. If it goes too long, you can let go of that. Um,
Yes.
and just the flow, like what you taught me years ago was, you always want to have this journey where people, that learning curve, so that and at the end,
Mm.
so the whole 10 sessions is a big arc, and
Right.
each one is a little arc that maybe builds on each other so they get bigger and
Yes.
bigger too.
Yes.
So if, I just would like to conceptualize um, the that journey for everyone.
Yes, great. So everything you said is true, right? Everything you said is true. And like that's that you could I it's exactly what I would say as far as there's an arc. I think maybe it is really we just go back to like this five stage framework that I came up with a while ago when I said I as an individual coach when I'm working with someone one on one, I know where I am. Like I'll peel it back to the origin story of like I know where I am. So, and I have different options depending on where I am. And I know like what leads to what leads to what. And I'm also watching time. So if I'm working with one person or if I'm working with 100 people, I want to know what is the purpose of this section. And then that leads to this section, leads to this, leads to this, leads to this. And the most important thing is we're beginning together and we're ending together.
Mhm.
So if this, I divide it into 5 different beats. So, and then it can be very specific. It can be at the 2/3 point, we are moving on to this next beat so that it has time. So You can block out, if you have 2 hours, you can be, all right, we're doing some connecting activities in the beginning. We're connecting to purpose. We're connecting to what, okay, I should show slides or something. But we know when I would facilitate in person and I didn't have this framework and I'm just in person, I have all those improv activities and stuff. I had a notebook and I had 5 blank pages in it. And I would put the purpose, the first page, the purpose is about establishing connection, like connection to each other, connection to the topic, understanding why are we here, like that's there. And then there'd be a bunch of post-it notes under of different activities that I do that would establish that type of connection. And I'd have a time. I'd be like, at 15 minutes after, we are moving into this section, which is like anchoring in their own goals. I have a piece of paper for that. I might even have multiple ways that that could be done. Do I want them to do it in partners? Do I want them to do it in a circle? Do I want them to write it down? Do I want them to like I was a wild facilitator. I would not commit to any of this, right? All I knew is I'm committing that we're going to show up. I'm going to say these. I'm going to remember to tell them where the bathrooms are and when the break is. I had a few things written down that I was committed to. I was committed to starting, I was committed to ending, and I was committed to a progression. Which activity I used, I would let myself at times just let myself follow my muse in the moment about that because I'm reading the room, like you're saying, like how are people entering the space? If they're looking a little nervous, maybe it'd be better for them to start with, just a paired activity that someone was really physically close to them. Maybe that would be the way to start. Or if I'm sensing this group is kind of entering and everyone's excited, maybe we want to start in a big circle and do something that's establishing the circle energy first. Maybe we want to be building up towards we're all a group. How is the group? It doesn't matter to me what I'm doing. I'd have different favorite activities, and I'd probably have some ones that I thought would be fun to try because I learned them like 2 days ago. But the purpose is, I know the purpose. The purpose is get this group to a state where they're in that learning mindset with each other, right? They're comfortable in their bodies. They're comfortable with the people in this room. They're oriented to the purpose of why we're here together. And they're oriented, they're just like, we're in a good space to work together. That's that. And I would have sort of upper limit of and then and you get as far as you get. As far as, because the group, you can't just shove a group, like a group on Tuesday connection may mean something different, like getting them to the state. You get them as connected and as open as they are considering where they're coming in, right? Then the next step is setting goals, which is like them setting their own goal. Why are they here? What's going to make it worth it to them? What's the one thing that they want to have different that would make it valuable for them to be here? What's the thing they want to get out of this? Acknowledging you got 20 people in the room. Supposedly you have this one goal, that's your goal. We're all working towards that, but along the way it's going to, each person, they have their own reason to be there. And so it's really embracing that and being like, I'm not going to pretend you all want to be here at the same way. It means something different to each of you. When I used to teach college, I would do this thing where I'd ask the students, like, why are you taking this class? Like, is it because it was dual credited and it's the fastest way to get their credits so they can graduate? Is it because they're interested in this major? Is it because they're considering changing their major? I would explicitly ask people, what are your goals? And then I would give them a strategy for how to get through this class depending on their goal. So it's just
That's
like,
wonderful.
absolutely be transparent of like, anyway, that's a little bit of side note, but what is their goal for being there? So that, and how are we going to do that? Am I going to have them write it down individually? Am I going to have it talk to a buddy? Are we going to write it on post-it notes and put them on the wall and group them? How are we going to do that? 1,000 ways to do that. But it's an important thing to do. Now they know while they're here. So that's the bookend on this side of your session. Then there's all the content and the fun stuff of your thing, right? Then there's the content of whatever it is you're doing. And my only comment about that is that every time you do something, you give people time to digest it and integrate it. So this is the part, who knows, Robin? You have one cool activity, and if people are like fired up and they're like responding to it, you're like, great, maybe I'll just let that activity take more time. If it's like, that got the motion going, but this next activity is really, it's actually leading us into this thing and there's
Yeah.
energy there, keep going. So you don't know how many activities, like my piece of paper with my post-it notes, I might get to one, two, three, I don't know. But that's where we're considering this thing that you're presenting, right? Then you get to like now you're at like the two at some point, and I just have a time written in Sharpie on my marker, like turn the page, turn the page. At 140, you're turning the page. At 140, we're moving on to the bigger integration. Who are you? Where did what, when you came here today, this is what you were looking for. This is what we've done. You know, what have you gotten out of this? What's resonated with you? And then action setting. Like that's the fifth stage. Like what actions are you taking away? So the answer, and then how I do integration, how I do actions. I also gave my creative leeway, because I'm reading that room. Who are those people and what's going to be the most meaningful way? For integration time, I might send them back to their original accountability person to talk about it, right? Or the original goal setting person, right? That's a nice little mechanism, right? Oh, you went off on a journey and how are you? I might do like we did at a meeting we were at the other day, like do magical gifts, do some kind of neat little activity where they're sharing with something. So many cool ways to do integration. But the main point being that the structure of knowing when it's time to move on, or when that structure will carry you, and it provides this dignity on each side that if these activities landed with them or didn't, everyone in the room has time to digest and make meaning out of what happened. That's okay. I said a lot because I'm trying to be like teach you a whole, kind of like review a whole framework. But what are you recognizing in that, or what resonates for you in that?
Well, as a teacher, and I run groups in schools and train um, people to run social emotional learning groups, which is really social emotional learning really is being a human, you know, being social and dealing with your emotions. But I have, um, you know, learned very well to pivot and to read my audience and all the things
Okay.
closer. What I want to do is help other people to do that by being aware of what's going on internally with them and externally with everyone in the room. Because we need to make sure that we are as present as possible. And if we're caught up in our emotions, if we're caught up in reaction, we're not present. It is in the present moment where all the juice is. And even Erica, when you and I were like talking about, oh, this session we're going to have together, you kept saying, I love this so much. You kept saying, we're just going to genuinely see what comes up. We're going to, and you didn't say be present, but in my mind, it was like, oh, she wants us to be in the now, because in the now is where all the juice is.
Okay. And we were, and then I was like, okay, let me do this little lecture thing and explain this thing so we have this framework in common. That's fine. And now, like, I wonder if maybe I lost a little bit of the power of what your question was, of like what your question was about. Well, how it was, how do you decide when to move on, or like what was when you talked about your flow, like what was the part that was the question? I lost it. What
I
was your
guess
question
I guess my ask for you
or your
is
inquiry? Yes.
could we take a look at my first 2 hour class
Okay.
and what I don't have necessarily a lot to review, but and see am I being realistic about helping people process all that I'm doing. I think that this
Okay.
adds the work that I'm doing adds a layer to typical work because I'm asking people to really communicate with themselves.
Okay, so
And I
what's
think
the
that's,
first class? So you want to do like a kind of focused, let's design the first class.
yeah, this one is called Your Nervous System Enters the Room First. And this is
Okay.
foundations, basically.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna
so
put that in the chat. Your nervous system enters the room first. And are
I,
you on board with this sort of like dropping it into these pieces as the first piece of structure?
sure, sure. I can, I'm
Okay.
going to drop in what I have um, so far for session one. It's very short, but I'll drop it in the chat so you can see what I'm trying to accomplish. Um, there we go. So basically, it is the idea that um, I want people to be as aware as they can be that their embodied presence co-regulates everybody in the room, right? So your nervous system, when you're leading, becomes the kind of influencer of everyone out there because your tone, your
Okay.
pacing, and your ability to be present to what's going on makes all the difference.
Okay. So it's like candy for my brain. And like, oh, let's design that. But what let's since it's your session, like what are I mean, first let me just share how we can drop this into a framework because you said session lab a few times and maybe people are listening and wondering what are we even talking about here.
Yeah.
So session lab is this program for designing workshops, and I actually did create a template here that is really that has those 5 steps that we talked about. So I'm just showing you how to use this template that I actually created, so I can send it to you. So, or anyone can find it on Session Lab.
Oh,
So we're creating a template. I'm going to put this sort of how to use this template over here in the parking lot because then it's out of our way. We'll get all this stuff out of the way. And so here we have like the different 5 blocks, right? You'll do something in this connection part, something in goal setting. Shift perspective is what I was calling the guts. And then every time you're doing some integration, you'll do shift, they travel together. You do something, you do some integration, you do something, you do integration. But this is, I guess this would be in the middle of this, like all the little beats of shift perspective and integration can be little things within this. So we can drop things in here and then like having a time where people do next steps. But the beats, this is more of the guts. This is what I was talking about, the bookends. So what time does your, like what, could we just give a time that your program starts? We can start just putting some
um,
structure.
just put 12 p.m.
All
and
right,
it's
we'll do 12
2 hours
p.m.
session. Yeah,
And then it ends by,
two.
and then we'll, okay, this is, I haven't been in this. We'll put like, I'm going to call the after party as sort of like that's when your program is over. So we'll just lock that at 2 p.m., right? Your program's ending by 2 p.m. Okay, just making some space here. And then for fun, okay, so,
So just so everybody knows, I have not designed this yet.
okay,
This
so
is
we're
the
going to design
design
it.
lab. Welcome to the design lab.
Okay, so we're
Um,
actually now we're going to get into the, now I know what we're doing. We're
yeah.
designing your program, and
Okay.
this program is, it is this like, is that what it is? Your nervous system enters the room first. Is
That's
that
session one of the
session one?
program, which
Right.
is the attuned
Session one.
facilitator. Yes.
Session one. Okay, great. Okay. So I feel like to design this, you're gonna be doing a lot of just in this connection and orientation block, you're gonna be orienting them to the whole program, right? So
Yeah.
there's gonna be a fair amount of that
Yes.
within here. So this is not just within the session, you're going to be doing this all iterative, right? So you're going to be doing, there's just so we're going to get too weedsy if I'm in session lab right now. Because you're going to be doing like both, you're starting both iterations at the same time right now, or both like the fact I'll show you like, does that work? Like if this is the progression of an individual session to connect, set goals, shift perspective, and integrate every single time, go round and round and round, and then we'll go into the bigger integration and action. You're doing this. You're doing like, oh, not even that one. Let me see if I have this one. You're doing like, you're starting off the journey of the whole program and you're doing a little program within that. So you're kind of starting both at the same time. So first is going to be anchoring to why are they in this whole program, you
Right.
know?
And getting
So
to know
this,
each other. Yeah.
and what is their goal for this whole program. So that's going to take up, a bunch of time to be oriented to that. And then it's like within this session, you're going to pick up this one piece and do some content around that piece,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay. What part do you most want to talk about?
Um, so I have these topics: nervous system awareness, embodied presence, self observation, co regulation, mindfulness foundations, noticing activation and settling in. My technique: breathe first, act second, and just how groups respond to facilitator energy. So I have, I was workshopping an exercise in Schenectady at a conference this weekend, to help people first be aware of the things that happen to them when they're facilitating, all the things that could go wrong or go right. And my colleagues helped me develop this exercise where people walk around the room and then they feel how they're feeling right now. And then I give a bunch of commands, like,
Yeah.
someone in your group is asking questions that are off topic, so, or someone in your
Hmm.
group is really excited about your work. And as they're walking, I say these things and I mix them up from, really wonderful things to things that are upsetting and could be derailing, so that feeling in that register in their body. So I think that would be a good exercise to use here. And it could actually encompass a lot of these things, nervous system awareness, embodied presence, self observation. So I think that would be a good way to, after people get oriented to the whole 10-week program at the beginning, and we do some icebreaker, get to know you exercises, and find out their goals and their intentions, and they write them down, giving people time to reflect. I think that exercise would be great. Now they're going to be walking around the room, on their Zoom in their room, and
Hmm.
um, but so, like, I haven't done that before. I mean, we did it in Schenectady, but I haven't done that with people who aren't my colleagues. So,
Hmm.
just curious, how long should I allot for that? I have some debrief questions. I've worked this out a bit, but it's not, and I'll try to find it.
Yeah.
But so tell me,
So
am I making
here's,
sense to you to?
yeah. So your
Okay.
question is like, I'm trying to be a little bit like the meta question here is like how to is it I've got an activity, so you feel confident in setting it up and setting up the expectations and
Yeah.
having people be oriented of why this is going to be meaningful to them and how they're going to progress through this bigger 8 week journey. And now we're in the content of, okay, let's do this like your nervous system enters the room first, and you have this like newly minted activity that is like people in their own space walking around and feeling how their nervous system has already been up and down and all over the place, and every
Yeah.
time something changes in the room they're like, ah, I'm tense, I'm leaning forward, I'm scared, I'm nervous. And so you feel good about the activity. There's lots of ways that activity could keep growing and progressing and things you can do with it, but the real question is like, how do I know how much time do I allow for it? Because I don't know. And maybe how do I gauge how well are people receiving it? Like, how much do I leave that flexible versus like pretty much say, I'm going to give it this much time and then I'm going to move on to this other thing.
Right. Like, in your
Yeah.
expert opinion, something like that. Um, I mean, I actually had combined it with a second part, which is the body, the witness, and the observer, which we also workshop this weekend,
Hmm.
which means that somebody's experiencing something, somebody looks and notices factually what's going on in their body, and then somebody does the interpretation of, like, oh, you must be
Yeah.
frustrated, or and
Yeah.
then are they right, and how do we read bodies, and how many times do we make false assumptions, and how much of that is based on our internal programming of
That seems
uh,
like that's a content for later,
I think
right?
you're
It seems
right.
like,
Yeah, so that's
yeah,
helping me. Yes. Good.
that's content for later because
Yeah.
this part is people just realizing that they have somebody else. They're like they're there with their body. It's almost like their
Yeah.
body's another like like character that's talking to them. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's
Yeah.
giving them information, and you need to you how do you work with your body? What do you do when you get, what do you do? It seems like there's a lot in that first session, which
Yeah.
is just people realizing how do they already, what's their default relationship with their body? Maybe putting it in that, like what's their relationship when their body speaks up? Like, do they hear it? Do they respond to it in a way that you're kind of like, not now? And do they do you tell yourself, your body, that it's wrong? Do you cut it off? Do you be like, enough from you? No, do you pretend that it's not happening? Like, it seems like there's so much you could do. I would just assume for most facilitators, they haven't really even considered how do they work with their body. They may have all kinds of different relationship to that. What's your relationship to your body? If your body says this, what do you do with information? Do you even hear it? Because
And
some people may be like, my body is messy. It says things. I don't know. I don't have time to listen to it. I just want to stick to my plan and move on. So it seems like there's a lot of things in there of like, what is your relationship with, is it a healthy, happy, is it how developed is your relationship in the first place? And if I was a person in your workshop, I'd want to know, well, if I don't have a very strongly developed relationship with my body, do I even want it? Do I even want to use this in my facilitation? Like, can I do this? Can I facilitate without a lot of confusing data coming from my body? What's the one part of my body I should maybe listen to? If we're getting to know
yeah.
each other, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it could be a new relationship for some people. Many of the neurodiverse people I work with, they do have difficulty tuning in to that interoception, which is tuning into your body and what's going on. And I loved that on The Big Bang Theory. What was his name? Sherman, the guy who
I
was
won't
the
know.
lead actor. Anyway, he somebody asked him, "Hey, oh, I know it was. The woman who was the free spirit was trying to teach him improv. And she said, let's start off with like a movement exercise. And she got up and she started doing like really crazy movements. And he just stood there and stared at her. And, she said, why aren't you doing the exercise with me? This is a warm up. He said, oh, you have to understand that my body and I have a very strong understanding that we keep a nice distance from each other.
Right.
And I
Right.
think
So,
that is
yeah.
true for many people. That will be sussed out the first
Yeah.
session. So this will be people who have different skill levels
Yeah.
in listening to their body, but I'm going to teach them a few things even in that first session that will help them to tune in more, but no matter what level they're at.
So yeah, it seems like that is such a rich area that I'm thinking, in person, but just ways to do like constellation exercises or sociometric things where people can respond to a prompt,
Oh, that's
and
good.
like how they can, you say a prompt like, I listen to my, I have a really, I listen to my body a lot, or I don't know, whatever. You come up with a statement, and
They
then
can they
people,
can they can show part
they,
of their body or all of their body based on
right, or they
yeah.
associate closer or further
Oh
away.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I
like,
like that too.
so if you do this in person, it's like there's a room, and you make, like, you sort of chart, you take a thing and you make it be like, you make this be a statement, and yeah, everyone's walking around. So everyone's walking around. This thing becomes a statement, a true statement, or a statement that says like, um, I am like, when I get nervous, I get curious, right? Okay. And then people sort of feel out
Oh,
how much they feel like, oh, I actually feel that way. They sort of magnetize towards that object, or they go further away. And it's really sort of a one to, it's really a sociometric on a linear scale, but since people are moving around the room, it feels more like it's a circles, right? And that you could translate that to online, so that your goal for that first session might just be that people they understand their relationship to their body, and they understand what's possible, and they sort of see where do they map, you know where
yeah.
do they map compared to other people, where do they map compared to what's possible, the normalizing the places people are, maybe some, and then your idea of something landing to, oh, if this is where you are, here's the one thing, here's the one place to focus first is your breath. And for those of you who are just developing a sense of a tentative relationship with maybe wanting to take in a little bit of more of your body, this will help you do this. And for those of you who are more experienced, you might find it will help you with this. And then do something, have people try it out. But I think you've got a lot of content just in before you, I mean, a lot of like value before you start telling people how to manipulate or change, like getting that field of the yes, right? Like what is true? What's true? Oh, getting curious about what's true, moving around with what's true, having questions about what's true before the sort of like, oh, I wonder how do you move from here to there? That will come later, but first people actually need to even understand what is even true, what's possible.
Wow, that is so good. See, this is exactly the thing that I need is how do I slow down enough to really let people have that foundation of where are you now? So then you can see where you are in the 10th session. Like maybe
Right.
there is some kind of
Yeah.
way that they can, through the activities you just suggested and also through self-assessment, so
Yeah.
there's something concrete they can take with them. I love
Yes.
this.
Thank you.
I,
This is so much. Yes, exactly. Because as facilitators, teachers, trainers, we're like, oh, we need to move them, change them. And I think there's like a way that's not, it's not loving. It's not giving people the dignity of like, you are where you are. It's beautiful where you are. Be curious about where you are. Be open to who you are. Like,
yes.
because let's not try to move people, right? That's just like, people don't want to be shoved. Like, and even deeper than that is just to take in, to be curious about, oh, I learned this here. Oh, right, that is where I learned that. And someone else is like, oh, I learned the opposite, and they're like, everything you were saying at the beginning, right? Of like taking in your whole self so that if I was in your thing, I would love to hear like this is going to be this is like a gradual journey that you have crafted for me where I'm not going to be rushed. I'm going to be getting to know myself and I'm going to be trying things out a little bit at a time. And I'm never going to be told that like I'm too late. I should be somewhere else.
Perfect. I love it. This is very helpful.
What does it say to you about how what you want for that first session? Or say more, just say more of like what's resonating because I think we're finally hitting the sort of the heart of it, I think, for
Yeah.
you as we settle down to be like, oh, what is design lab?
Well, it's
So,
interesting that the premise is that your the facilitator's embodiment and relationship to what's going on internally, that interception, is the key to being aware of everyone in the group, the neurodiversity, the moods,
right.
the trauma, whatever is going on out there. So the idea that I spend more time than I originally thought before we started this today on letting that sink in, letting people have that embodied experience, having, a self-assessment of where am I in listening to my body
Right.
before,
Because you know from your own experience, like before we talk about accepting all the neurodiversity out there of the other people, you know that our capacity to love, to be present, to be receptive to be responsive to, is directly related to how much of we are able to do that for ourselves.
right.
So you're like breaking out of that. You're like, we're not going to pretend that you can teach stuff, that you can really teach stuff that is not stuff that you have for yourself. And it's all fractal, right? So I think the more time you're spending in, like, you are so deeply wise about, you've done the work of it, of like, what is trauma? What is integration? What is all of this deep work, the more that if you're bringing that to people, and that's like half the time is them, what is their own neurodiversity? What is their own relationship? What are the voices that they've had that shuts them down, that opens them up? Like people coming into healthy relationship with their own, with who they are, the diversity of the feelings they have in the room, the diversity of the reactions that they have, that, that will so immediately translate to the compassion for the people in the room. Because all those things you mentioned in the walk around, like, oh, somebody like cuts me off, somebody shuts down, somebody does this, like, I can, it's just so much easier to have compassion for, like, oh, when someone's look crosses someone's face, the more I understand what do I look like and looks across my face and what could that mean, and oh, and hearing from the other people in the cohort maybe how they've been misunderstood or they've been shut down or they've been interpreted differently and what was really true.
That's great. That is so great because we get misinterpreted all the time. So,
Hmm.
how clearly are we representing ourselves?
Right.
And a lot of time when we are lost in thought, we misrepresent ourselves.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, so that could be a bridge from like what we believe we know about each other, and that's that witness thing you were talking about. Then we could have, then you could have people doing something being witnessed by someone and see how different ways it's interpreted. Because then, I'm going to believe it a lot more if I see someone else, and then I'm going to have compassion for, and then I can project that compassion to go, like, instead of interpreting this person over here like this, I'm going to be curious about them. I'm going to treat them with the compassion that I wanted to be treated by, when I was in that situation.
That's perfect. And I think that one of the things that our society does not value is the wisdom that comes out of failure, trauma, difficult situations. And because one of the keys that I've understood, and this relates to reading the room and empathy, is that the more that I allow myself to feel the deep, hard feelings, the ones that, the shame, the guilt,
Mm.
the hurt, physical, emotional, sexual, whatever it is, when I allow myself to feel that, and 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 then realize that I'm not alone in this world. Everyone is suffering. And if they tell you, I mean, that's why social media is so infuriating because
Yeah.
behind all that stuff, nobody escapes from, having hard things happen in their life. So I want also to encourage people to use that, to realize that every single person in your audience, in your group, in your classroom has brought their nervous system to the situation, um, having gone through something not the same as you,
Right.
but your acceptance of your own difficulties, your own failures, can help you decide how you want to be in this world. Once you accept it, you have more freedom. So I'm not a victim anymore. So who do I want to be? How do I want to be in this world?
And that's your power, right? That's the heart of your, what you bring at this point in your career, your accumulated wisdom, to be able to hold the space for all these, for the other, for these other people, to see them. And what I'm sensing from, as you're describing this, it seems like what you really want is a really loving, connected cohort. Like, you want
Perfect.
the people who go through this, that this is bigger than, oh, how to facilitate, or whatever. This is about uh these people really getting to know themselves at a next deeper level. And the call is, what I think, what happens a lot with me anyway, is like, the call is, these are people who serve, who care deeply. Your audience are people who care deeply, and they're going to come to you because they're going to say, help me serve these other people that I
Yes,
care. But then what you're
exactly.
going to give them is the self-care and the self-acceptance and the wisdom to care for themselves, knowing that if you do that, that allows them to be the person in the room who can meet any participant, whatever they're going through.
With compassion and acceptance. Yeah, I mean that I'm going to cry because that really is my mission. I mean, I meditate every day, and I always have a prayer, an intention, however you want to say it, of how can I serve. I mean, I know that I've learned a lot through my own personal pain and trauma. I had a lot of early childhood trauma, and I know that by picking myself up and becoming who I want to be, that I want to share what I've learned. I mean, I really feel like um, there's an opportunity here to create, that space, and to help people realize that that space is within them to do that,
Yeah.
and then to give them some, practical ways to move forward with that. And I hope that the cohort becomes a support group too.
Yeah.
That I really would like us to continue to support each other and to, maybe figure out together how we can be of service,
Yeah.
in our own
We've
worlds and collectively.
what I'm hearing is this is so important to you right now. And really what you know is you want to create this with this cohort. And I know you could call it a pilot, you call it whatever. This first group is going to have a very special experience. It's going to be very real. It's going to be experimental. You're going to be adapting. You can normalize that for whoever that is. You may or may not ever run that type of cohort again. You don't know.
Right.
Like, I think this is you're creating a journey with other people and you're committing to them to be learning, to be providing, to be supporting, and then something else will come something will come out of that. It may be a new variation of the same program, but it may be something different. You don't, I would just hearing where you are, would just let it be what it is without claiming without putting the weight of a future on it, right?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with letting it become what it's meant to become, and just I'm still developing it, but there's going to be a lot of rigorous things in terms of participation requirements, competency, people measuring before and after. Like, I want this to be data driven. I want it to be, maybe a final project where they do a presentation based on all they've learned. I want it to really have legs. And somebody asked about certification, who will be certified by, and I'm creating that now. I can look into continuing education, but really it would be through the work that I've created, which I have a book, I have a website with probably 50, at least 50 blogs on techniques. So I feel like I'm creating my own certification program based
Right.
on the body of knowledge that I've acquired over my lifetime, which, has not been short, luckily,
No,
luckily for me.
it's been rich. Yes, lucky for all of us. Okay, well,
So,
as we come to like perhaps around the top of the hour, depending on when we started here, um, what we started this our own experiment, right? Um, what when you reflect on this time that we've spent together, what are the main things that stand out to you? Like, what are
oh,
you taking
I feel
away?
I feel so filled right now. I mean, I've always loved working with you, Erica, but you do have a great ability to see into, um, into an issue, and to provide opportunities to have different avenues to deal with that. But I would say that I feel much clearer about uh, setting things, like the first session is so important, and I feel much clearer about the arc of that, about how I need to spend a lot of time with that and getting people oriented, and you know really using that first experience so that there is a definite understanding of what I'm going to get out of this, and how experiential it is already,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Cool. Anything else that you want to say? Because what we'll do next is we'll shut down the live stream and we'll hang out with
Okay.
the backstage audience here, and I'm sure there's questions, and you
Yeah.
can respond to questions. We can see what other people how they react to this. But before we end the live stream part, is there anything else that you want to say as far as what you learned or what you're taking away or anything else?
Um, not really. Just grateful to be doing this work, and I know that the world needs more of us, everybody in this group. We all have, uh, you know, something that we want to bring forward that is, and I'm just making this assumption because I know the kind of people Erica attracts and that are in my world too. So how can we keep collectively making sure that the joy and the beauty and the wonderful things that we want to put out in the world are amplified so that the noise of greed and of self-serving and all of that is diminished by our increasing drumbeat of what is beautiful and joyful and helpful to each other.
All right. Yes. You're like, amen. Yes. Yes. Keep, I've done a lot of work with groups like that of like, well, all these things are changing, things that no one can take from you, your values, your heart, your stories, your history, your relationships. Like there's a lot that no one can take. And it looks like Zabby has ended the live stream. Okay.